We live. And we are live. Mark Drummeller, Tony Cotillo, Fox Sports The Gambler. What is up, everybody? Post-game action. Mark, you might as well just lead us off right now because you have some interesting news. I think you hit a couple things tonight, didn't you?
We had a good night. I'll tell you what, it went exactly how we saw it. The Chiefs obviously won big. A little bit of a sweat at the end. We don't like to sweat, letting the Texans back in the game. But was on this one, man. And the big story, I think, everyone will agree, is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Huge night, 138 yards total, for the rookie. So Andy Reid goes out and gets the running back. It could make a huge difference in that offense. I actually entered a contest with the Bet the Board podcast, where I had to pick the right side of the total, which was at 53.5. I picked the over. It went to 54. So Andy Reid helped me out with that last minute field goal. And
Big Red, thanks, Big Red.
And then you had to pick the player with the most yardage. I had Edwards-Helaire, and I had him pegged at 137 yards. He got 138, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to win this contest unless I didn't go through all 300 entries, but somebody might have had the same with 138, but let's hope not. So, maybe I can win some cash.
There is a reason why they call my man the Wizard, right?
That's right, brother.
The reason why they call him man. So if you are not on board with Mr. Drummeller, you have to be in. Listen, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I'll tell you what, we were skeptical, right? We were skeptical coming in here. Is he, a lot of people, I know I wasn't, because we've seen what Big Red has done in the past with guys, and you see what Kareem Hunt did as a rookie in Kansas City. So, I'll tell you what, Mark, I didn't realize how small he was. I thought he was bigger. Yeah. I didn't realize he was so compact.
Yeah, you used the right word. He's compact, right? Because as small as he is, he's still powerful the way he runs. We saw that at LSU. I think he fits. Listen, when that selection came up, I was screaming for them to take Jonathan Taylor, because I was like, if they can have like a really physical presence, they could be unstoppable. You know what I mean? And we saw what they talked about, how they brought in that lineman. His name's escaping me. I want to call him like Kissimmee or something, but I forget. They brought in. They were talking about him, and he's like a road grader.
Osimi,
or something like that. Yeah. So if they have that element to their offense, it's like, wow. But, Edwards-Helaire does, everything as far as, out of the backfield. That screen game that Andy Reid, takes all the way to the Hall of Fame, I'm sure, when he retires. It's unstoppable, and he fits that mold really well. So they're gonna put up a ton of points. They're picking off right where they left off. That's what I expected. They have a history of doing that. If you look back at the last 3 week ones, they pounded the Patriots in 2017, 42-27. They beat the Chargers by 10 points the year after that. And then last year they smoked Jacksonville 40-26. So they usually are not a slow starting team as far as the season. So we saw that tonight, as they look pretty much unstoppable when they wanted to be.
Yeah, they did. And Mahomes was very efficient. It was like, I think in the first quarter, it was like 7 for 8 or 10 for 11 for 78 yards and 2 touchdowns. Just a very methodical approach. Sorry, Tyreek Hill fans, for when we talk about fantasy. He's a boomer bust guy, Mark. We talk about this all the time. He's either heavily involved or he's like a major decoy, which is almost like what you've seen. But if you look at the Texans, man, I'll tell you, if you can sit here and say they did not miss DeAndre Hopkins, you're crazy, man. They definitely missed Diop. Will Fuller, okay, 8 catches, 112 yards, but doesn't matter. They lost 34-20, and the receivers could not get off the line like DeAndre Hopkins does, and I think it's a big loss for them, and they're going to continue to struggle, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, they're in a little bit of trouble there, because those yards for Fuller, that's fake yards. After 3 quarters, when it was 31-7, he had 4 receptions, 40 yards, right? And then, they pile on some garbage in the fourth quarter. But that was the key to me. There was a point, I want to say, going into the fourth quarter, it was definitely in the second half. Deshaun Watson was 0 for 5 with 1 interception on passes in the air, traveled more than 10 yards. So no vertical element. When they got rid of Hopkins and they brought in Cobb and they bring in Cooks and, they have Fuller, I think the vision was they're going to spread teams out. They're going to get vertical. They're going to use a lot of speed. They're going to take advantage of what Deshaun Watson does best, and that's the deep ball. Prettiest deep ball in the NFL. But we saw none of that tonight. We saw, and maybe that's, hey, we know chemistry and continuity is going to be a big thing with no preseason, which is another reason I like the Chiefs tonight. They bring back all their starters. They got all their coaches coming back. So we didn't see that on the Houston side. Not a lot of chemistry, not a lot going on at all offensively. I mean, David Johnson looked good, but if you're banking on him, you're going to in for a world of trouble. I mean, he could be decent this year, but he's not going to win them games.
No, it's not. And listen, Watson threw a couple nice balls. One, the Fuller that he dropped, right? It was right there. Nice turnaround, back shoulder catch. He couldn't handle it, right? It went through, I think Kenny Stills went through his hands towards the end. So he made the plays. I know it's got to be frustrating for him, Mark. I keep saying this. I understand that he's getting paid the second highest paid quarterback in the NFL. But when you lose your top weapon like that, when you just took DeAndre Hopkins and swifted him around to the rug and sent him to Arizona and said, here you go, we're going to change the offense. I mean, I don't know how else he's going to be. So the one thing I do like is a lot of quick drops from Deshaun Watson tonight. And it's going to, we talked about that today on the show, it was going to help his health. He's not going to get hit as much, which is a huge deal, especially if he wants to maintain a 16-game season. But no, I was impressed by David Johnson. Looking at David Johnson, because obviously, you have bets going, I have fantasy picks going, and it was a big thing about David Johnson. Is he going to be the guy? Is he going to have the burst? Is he going to have the cut? He actually looked really good. Really good.
He did. He looked a lot better. Is it possible Arizona gave up on him a little early? Who knows? But I think that deep down inside, Bill O'Brien wants to run the ball. I mean, I thought that the oddest thing out of tonight was this dude's down by like 100 points and he continued to run the ball.
Yeah.
I had no idea what he was doing there. And then, of course, the end of the game comes. And now, listen, KC let them back in the game. But still, I'm sure when he looks at it, tomorrow, he's going to wish he had those possessions back, because the game ended up being a lot closer than probably he expected, and he just wasted time running the ball in the second half for no reason.
Yeah, he really did. And David Johnson averaged 7 yards per carry, which, I mean, that's something we haven't seen in a long time. I mean, obviously, he's not going to do that every week, but at least it showed that he has that escapability. He has that durability to be able to do it. Deshaun Watson, 20 of 32, 253, 1-1. He did rush for 30 yards and grabbed a touchdown as well towards the end. But listen, Randall Cobb, Brandon Cooks, these guys, Mark, they have to do a lot more than 2 for 20 and 2 for 23 if this team is going to do anything going forward. I mean, listen, we're not talking about Pro Bowl corners here in Kansas City. I mean, Rashard Brilliant's already suspended. We were talking about rookie guys there being able to take advantage, and they couldn't do it. And a lot was the pressure. The pressure coming up the front from Chris Jones, Frank Clark. And I'll tell you what, I slept on Frank Clark years ago. When he played in Seattle, I didn't think he was that good. I mean, I blasted them for trading D Ford to San Francisco, but Frank Clark, man, he is a beast, isn't he?
He is. And then that defense is playing just where they left off last year as well. I thought that they looked strong as far as the pressure. Titus Howard, and the Texans, was getting his lunch money taken repeatedly out there. And it was just, it just looked bad. But that's the thing, you talked about, the quick passing game that they're trying to evolve to. And I think that they probably could have done a better job taking that up another notch, seeing the problems the offensive line was having. Listen, they're not going to be the strongest offensive line in the league, but then maybe it's a chemistry thing, but I was surprised there weren't as much bubble screens and things like that, where you have these guys like Cooks, Fuller that have a ton of speed. You didn't see any reverses. You didn't see any jet sweeps. You didn't see any bubble screens. You didn't see any of that stuff. And just offensively, they looked like they couldn't get it going. I know they have a new coordinator, right? So you don't have continuity there. He's trying to figure things out. I think they said he was an offensive line coach before. So it might take them a little time to
reach up. He was a defensive line coach.
It's like
I'll
Juan
check that out. Bro, what is that?
Juan Castillo lives.
Juan Castillo, I remember that. I mean, yeah, you bring up a great point, because these are all guys with 4.3 speed, and you're not even using them. like at all. It was so predictable. That offense was so predictable. So it's going to have to change a lot if they're going to win a lot of games here. It really is.
Yeah, I think so. And, I said this at the beginning of the year, their schedule's brutal in the beginning of the year. And that's the hardest thing. It's only getting tougher as we go. Next week, they get the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson, right? So they're probably going to get their doors blown off in that game as well. And then after that, I think it's Pittsburgh and then Minnesota, or Minnesota and Pittsburgh, but I believe it's Pittsburgh week 3, then Minnesota. So, they have some tough games, man. They could easily go into that game against Minnesota 0-3. And, Minnesota's a team that I'm a little down on as well. So that could be 2 teams in week 4 really needing a victory. So even when you think the schedule eases up a little bit, it really doesn't, because that team, it could be a pivotal game for them as well.
Yeah, they'd be lucky to go 500 and go 2 for 2 and split those 4. They really would. I mean,
it's brutal. And I like them. Like overall, my projections them this season, like I think they could be an 8-win team. And, you'll have to see how it plays out. But if they start 0-4 or 1-3, there might be some value there to take them as a team to get into the playoffs at that point, because the odds are going to be so favorable, because they're going to be 1-3, 0-4, but they got that tough part of their schedule out of the way. And then, you kind of bet on them turning things around, and, they probably only need to be 9-7 to get in the playoffs, with these 7 teams that are letting in.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I was. I mean, looking at the other side of the ball, you start talking about odds, and we look at overall statistics. I know one thing I bet on was the over on Tyreek Hill for 35 yards. And listen, I was scared there for a little bit, man. I know he got in the end zone, but he only had 5 catches for 46 yards. It wasn't like he set the world on fire. But the thing is, Mark, he didn't have to. That's just crazy, right? Clyde Edwards-Helaire with 25 carries for 138 yards. I mean, listen, this kid, it was just hand him the rock. So if there's any question about him being the guy, it's done. I mean, you see in game 1, he is the man.
He's the guy. But we do have to keep in mind, right, this Houston defense, I think, could be the worst in the NFL this year.
Wow,
and I'm not saying that all tonight. Last year, they were tied for Cincinnati for the worst yards per play allowed, right? So yards per play is a metric that is widely used as almost a foundational piece when, evaluating teams in the betting market. And it's, yards per play allowed, 6.1 yards per play allowed. That defense was pretty bad last year. Now, they got away with it a lot because of the miracles of Deshaun Watson. They still won some of those games, right? But I think they got outscored during this season. Like, they actually let up more points than they scored during the year, even though they're a playoff team, which is pretty rare in itself. So there were some indicators pointing for Houston to regress. And it's mainly because of that defense. And we saw it tonight. They just looked awful. They're banged up. They didn't do anything in the offseason. They spent a couple late draft picks on the defense, but they're not in a position, because of the moves that they made as far as draft capital, to really improve that defense as the year goes on, or, in the next coming years. And I think that's going to be a big challenge for them, because they're pretty bad, and I think that, a lot of teams. So I don't know who Kansas City has offhand next week, but it'll be interesting to see if they play like a tougher defense, how they can do it. But their key is Edwards-Helaire out of the backfield. They do safeties and linebackers. They have to be honest. They have to stay up, and that's why you're going to see the variance with Cheetah, right? You're going to see why, because they're getting 140, 160 yards one game, and then they're going to get 40 or 50 the next game, because there's so many weapons. You have Kelsey in the middle of the field. You have Edwards and Helaire out of backfield, and then you can stretch them vertically with those 2 guys. So it really puts defenses in conflict.
And you make a good point when you think about that, and that's why I keep saying it. If you look at this, and not to go away just from this game, but if you look at exactly the way the Chiefs' offense was run, that's what makes me so excited about Tampa Bay, because I just feel like, who are you going to defend? Right. Like it is going to be single coverage everywhere, and people are going to be wide open, man. People are going to be wide. The only way I don't even know. I think the only difference is obviously that Brady is not Mahomes and he's not mobile. So if you can get the Brady, that's probably going to be the only way, right? Mahomes actually has the escapability factor, but I'll tell you, they are scary, man. And that Andy Reid, typical that the out and about. The little screen to the tight end, like it just it like has been working for 30 years. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It
and
always works.
He has so many variations of it, and he's got guys going in motion all the time and moving around, and he really does. I mean, it's high percentage throws. Like, Mahomes can make any throw on the planet. He can make throws that nobody else can do. We all see the behind the back and all that crazy stuff, and he can throw the ball 40 yards down the field on the dime. You don't have to worry about it. But he doesn't have to during the game because of Andy Reid and the way he designs the plays. You rarely see, when you look at the advanced metrics, he's not throwing into tight windows a lot, and that's because of the scheme. People are wide open all the time, and he's just zipping it in there. And, obviously he's mobile too, so defenses have a ton to worry about. But it's going to be a fun year for the Chiefs. They're going to be one of the top teams. They're going to be right back at it. I don't see any Super Bowl hangover coming.
No, I definitely don't. One thing for sure, if somebody, I know a lot of people are commenting on Twitter, but it was annoying me too. I mean, Andy Reid's got that mask on and, that shield, and it's fogged up the entire game. Like, you know what I mean? But how about I didn't know this. I don't know if you knew this, but when you heard Michelle Tafoya talk about the contact tracing bracelets that they were wearing. Did you see that?
I did not, no.
I'll tell you what. This is why the NFL is always a step above everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So every player and coach and staff member have to wear these bracelets. And what they are is they have this high-tech contact tracing element in there. So, if somebody were to test positive for the coronavirus, it will tell them in the proximity of who and how little or how far they were, who they came in contact with, what day, what time. I mean, this is amazing. I mean, it is like it's crazy with the amount of steps that the NFL has taken. And I know that I was one for one that was saying, listen, you know what? The NFL is the almighty. They're saying we don't have to do anything. We're just going to get through. But they've taken some tremendous steps to make sure that they don't have an outbreak. And I was pretty blown away by that. I really was.
Yeah, they don't play. The NFL don't play, especially when it comes to money, right? And that's really, that's what the season's about.
Yes.
To them, it's a business. They run it like a business, and they're not playing around. I always had a lot of confidence that out of the four organizations that they would probably do the best job. Obviously they can't be in a bubble or anything like that, but they're on top of it. I think if any organization does, this isn't baseball where a couple guys get COVID and then they don't know what to do and they sit around and think about it for 3 days and then they send everyone home. Like, they have a plan A, B, C, D, E, and F. And the bracelets are interesting, man. Like, that's like Back to the Future Chip Kelly stuff, right?
Yeah, man, that's next level. That is next level, man.
Just like, but it's good. It's good for, the organization, and it's good for the different teams because, one of the things we have to keep in mind, while we go through the season is there needs to be things in place for the players to feel safe as well. You know what I mean? It's not just really about preventing an outbreak, but it's about letting the players have enough confidence to where they can worry about the game. And not be worrying in the back of their head. We always talk about how injured players, when they come back after they had a severe injury, about how mentally, in the back of the head, they're not playing, as they used to, because in the back of their mind, they're always thinking, hey, what about my knee? What about my ankle? Well, imagine thinking like, well, I don't really want to touch this guy. You know what I mean? Or
right, exactly.
Has, like what if, something's spreading on the other team or whatnot? That's why I think it's kind of crazy. I don't know if you saw the stuff about Oklahoma. I don't know what came of it yet, but Lincoln Riley was saying that he's not going to release data on who tests positive on his team because he feels like it's a competitive advantage for the other team. And I'm like, hey, you got to be transparent with that. So I don't know what happened. That came out a couple of days ago. I don't know if the NCAA stepped in, but he doesn't want to release the data, even of who is – because it's a gray line. I don't want to get too deep. We'll go down the rabbit hole on this, but when the NFL players sign their contracts, they waive the rights to the HIPAA laws. Like, in regards to injury.
Right.
But this is an injury. This is a disease.
Yes.
So
exactly.
there's a gray area there. And I think the NCAA is kind of working through that because, once they made a decision to have a season to play these games, you get these top flight universities and they get tunneled in on winning.
Oh, they're all about the money too, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We know that. And, looking at the Chiefs schedule coming up, you go against the Chargers next week, which that's a win, right? There's no way to Chargers, right? No way. That's at the Chargers. Then you go at Baltimore. Then you're home against New England. And then you're home against Vegas. And then you're at Buffalo. That's your first 6 games. I mean, I'll tell you what, Mark, to be honest with you, you can go 6-0, maybe 5-1. That Baltimore game to me is probably the only game that's going to be like, highly competitive. I think all the other ones are absolute winners, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think New England will be able to give them a run maybe later in the season, but I just think they lost so much on defense. They're not going to be ready. Like, they're not going to be ready for a team like Kansas City that early in the year. So that's just kind of like where the schedule falls. But I agree with you. I mean, Baltimore, it's going to be the game everyone wants to see.
Yep.
But after that, I mean, they should run through those other teams pretty easy.
And Buffalo will be interesting. Buffalo is one of my surprise teams this year. I really like Buffalo. I actually picked them to go to the AFC Championship game this year. I really like. I know I'm winging a lot on Josh Allen, but I just think defensively, I think they are that good. And I look at finally, New England is not the cream of the crop when it comes to the AFC East anymore. So, they actually have the ability to go past that.
Yeah, there's a window there.
Right? And I like McDermott. I think McDermott's a really good head coach, man.
I think he is. And I like the GM, and I think that he's done a good job of bringing in pieces and doing things. I just not a Josh Allen guy. I was never a Josh Allen guy. Still not. I just think you need accuracy to play in the NFL, and I don't think that that's something he's going to learn at this level.
You never know, man. You never know, right?
You never know. And and I think that that's kind of what could hold them back. Like, to me, when I look at the Bills this year, I wouldn't be surprised if they went down the road of like the Bears last year, right? Wow. Great defense that, was on the uprise, made the playoffs. And then year 2, they found out that their quarterback really wasn't an NFL quarterback. And I think that's kind of what
the Wizard is spoiling my bets already.
Yeah.
I actually hasn't even started yet.
I know. But I like, but listen, I like everything about them but the quarterback. But I think the quarterback's going to be a big sticking point. But I could be wrong. Listen, I like Josh Rosen, and he has not turned out. So I mean, we don't get every quarterback right. That's the beauty of the game and watching these players develop. But it's going to be pretty interesting. When you look at that class, I mean, all those guys to a point are a little shaky, right?
Yes.
Except Lamar,
Except Lamar.
Yeah, except Lamar. And, you look at Darnold. They don't know what's going on with him. He's tied down with Gase. You got Mayfield. Reports are coming out that Keenum looks better in camp there, that he's not grasping a new system. So that's something to keep an eye on. Because, a lot of people think that the Browns can take a big step. So I think that they'll be probably tied to the running game a little even more than people expected if he's having a little trouble with the system. But, who knows too, right? Like, practice. Some players aren't practice players.
True.
We saw that here with Nick Foles, right? Now, sometimes Nick Foles isn't a game day player either. But, some players are just not good in practice and just they can only turn it up in the games. And, maybe Baker's one of those guys, but we'll have to see. There's a lot of talent on a Cleveland team. There really is.
Yeah. It's crazy to me if they don't win.
Well, they said the tackle's struggling.
What's that?
The tackle's struggling too, Wills. I heard that he's struggling because they're playing him on a different side. Like, I think they're playing him on the left because they went out and got Conklin to play the right. And he played the right, I guess, at Alabama. They're moving him to the left. So he's coming to the NFL. He's making a transition. He's learning a whole different, it's like, that's why with Dillard, when we were like, oh, just play Dillard here and play him there, it's not that easy for these guys. So especially in a year where, you have virtual OTAs and all that junk. So
it's crazy. But the one thing I will say, though, I think that bringing Stefanski over from the Minnesota system, and how he likes to run the ball, I think, he's going to have an onus on taking some pressure off of Baker Mayfield. right? You know, he's basically going to allow him to, not be that. Listen, Baker, you don't have to do it all on your own. I understand we have all these weapons out here, but we're going to run the game a lot with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. And I got to ask you, Mark, because you were a big Chubb guy, right? Yeah. We broke down the AFC and the NFC. You were on the fantasy firebox. And you talked about Nick Chubb being one of your top running backs in fantasy. I got to ask you, that extension comes out for Kareem Hunt. Does it make you think a little bit about the numbers that Nick Chubb's going to put up this year?
I don't. I think that it's almost like insurance. They give him a little 2-year deal so they can kind of figure out what Chubb. Because listen, Chubb comes out and is the number 1 rusher in the NFL, then the contract talks are going to get difficult because you don't. The worst place you want to be is an organization where you have to set the market at the running back position, right? Yeah. So I think that it's more of a like, hey man, if he's, a couple different things can go, right? Like what if, Chubb could blow out his knee? Now they got they got insurance with Hunt, right? Or if Chubb doesn't blow out his knee again, no injury issues, because that was the challenge coming out of Georgia. Then you're looking at it from the perspective of what does the team look like at this point? Do we want to be the team that sets the market at the running back position? Do we want to be that team? And a lot of people don't. So, and especially you look at, they got Berry over there now in Cleveland, their analytics, they're smart guys they have over there. And I don't think that they're going to want to set that market. So they might be prepping, you know what I mean? But I don't think it's an indictment on Chubb this year. I just think it's more of a down the line kind of insurance policy. We'll tie up Hunt. We have leverage on Hunt now, more leverage than, we'll have, after the season probably. So they get that deal wrapped up when they can.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think they could both be productive. I do. I think they could both be productive, just like, Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara were productive in New Orleans. I think they can be both that good. You know what I mean? I think because they have different elements of their game. Yeah,
Chubb, Hunt will do more in the passing game for sure. There was even some talk about them playing him a lot in the slot. I don't know what came of that.
I was surprised at that. I mean, don't you have Jarvis Landry? I mean, he's probably one of the best slot receivers in the game.
I know, but new staff, who knows, man? You know what I mean? Like, who knows what they're doing? But it could be like a positional thing, right? Like,
it could be.
They run 2 running back sets, and then they split him out and run him in the slot. They get the matchups they want. Where you can't put Jarvis Landry in the backfield; you're not going to fool anybody.
Yeah, no, that's true.
You know what I mean? So it could be that kind of thing. Especially they're running a lot of like 20 and 12 personnel where they got 2 running backs, 2 tight ends, that kind of stuff.
So I know you were on the show. You were on the Daily Ticket all last week where you were breaking down every single division. So, for you, I talked about the Bills. For me, is there kind of a team number 1 that you're looking at that may regress a lot more than people think, or maybe a team that everybody's in love with, that may be not as good as we think? Is there anybody on your radar?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think, when you look at the team, I'm not big on Atlanta. I think Atlanta could be one of the worst teams in the league this year. I know a lot of people kind of have them all over the place. They're getting a lot of talk now because Seattle typically starts slow and they're hosting Seattle, and but I don't like that situation there. I think the NFC North is really going to be between the Bears and the Lions. I like the Bears. I like them all in the offseason, but I'm just not sure how many games they're going to waste with Trubisky. That kind of depends, like how long they stick with him, because the part of the handicap of why I like the Bears is their first 3 games are against very easy opponents, right? They have Detroit. They have, I think it's like the Giants. And then they have another team that was like a bottom feeder of the NFL. I forget exactly who it was, but so that, like, starting this season that way, and if you can jump off to like a 3-0 lead to the season, then in 3 winnable games. Oh, Atlanta. So it's Atlanta, the Giants, Detroit. That's how they start their season.
Yeah, you go Detroit. You have Detroit, the Giants, Atlanta, Indianapolis, and Tampa Bay.
Right. So if you can start 3-0 historically, those teams fare very well as far as their season, making the playoffs, builds confidence, And but if they waste those games with Trubisky, then that might ruin it. So I don't know where that's going to go, how long Trubisky will be in there. Because I don't think he's an NFL quarterback. I think that party's over. But it's just, I shouldn't say NFL quarterback, NFL starter.
You're completely dismissing the Minnesota Vikings?
Yeah, I think they're
really?
well, not dismissing, but yeah, I think they're going to struggle this year. I do. Yeah. I don't. They have a lot of turnover on that defense, man, and it's just that's Zimmer's thing. And listen, offensively, the offensive line's not great, right? So now you're looking at Cook, right? What was the biggest surprise at Dalvin Cook last year, right? That he stayed healthy. Everybody was
yeah.
Dalvin Cook stayed healthy, so whoa, he got all these yards. All right, so they gave him the ball 29 times a game. Is he going to be able to stay healthy this year, getting that same type of workload? It's a lot to ask. I'm not saying he's going to get injured, but I'm saying that I'm not 100% convinced that he's durable. And the offensive line's not great. They have less weapons. Like Stephon Diggs, one of the best route runners in the NFL. You take that away, they go draft a guy who they probably give back now if they could, I think, in Jefferson. Reports are he's not doing very well. So, and listen, it's early. You have plenty of time for this guy to catch on, but I just don't think that they have a lot offensively this year. And they lose the home field advantage that was huge for them. Always, they always played well at home. Zimmer's record at home was tremendous. They're not going to have any fans in there, so that's kind of a hit. But defensively, whole new secondary. I shouldn't say that all three corners are no. So that the safeties are the same. You got Harrison Smith and you got the other guy that they locked up. I can't think of his name offhand, but safeties, but all three corners are different, right? You got virtual OTAs. We talked about chemistry, continuity, right? There'll be communication, won't be great on the back end. The people that left Minnesota, those corners, Alexander, Trey Waynes, they all talked about how difficult that system is to grasp from the cornerback position. It's very demanding on the position. They leave you out there, a la Jim Schwartz, that we see how that goes. So I think there's a lot of things there. They lost Linval Joseph up front, right? Now they went out and got Ngakoue, but he can't play the run. Like he's a great pass rusher, but you can run right through him. So they're
lost Everson Griffin too.
Yeah, lost him. So they're soft up front. They're soft. You got bad corners. They don't have the weapons they had on offense. So I'm not saying they're going to be drafted in the top 5, but I could easily see them being 7-8 win team.
Listen, I'm shocked because I have them winning the conference only because I have no faith in the Chicago Bears. I have no faith in the Detroit Lions. I just don't. Yeah. I think the dumpster fire is in Chicago. I think that they're not going to win this year. This will be Nagy will be gone. I think Ryan Pace on the hot seat, obviously, for a lot of moves, especially the guy we watched tonight, Deshaun Watson, passing up on him for good old Mitch. But I still can't believe it. And I'm not a Nick Foles guy, but I'm shocked that Nick Foles was not named the starter. And I get it. Listen. Right, me and you were in Philadelphia. We're not in Chicago. I get it, and I know we can't watch what's going on, but I just can't see it. Seeing what we've seen the last 2 years, all of a sudden, you said it earlier with Josh Allen. All of a sudden, is he going to get accuracy? Is all of a sudden Mitchell Trubisky going to change? I don't get it.
Not, but I think what that is, it's a combination of a couple things. So I think that when they brought Foles in and they brought in D. Filippo, right? We remember D. Filippo when he was here, fiery guy, got in your behind, right? He would rip people apart, and that kind of grows on you. And that's why he moves around, right? But, he gets results and, he wants to see his quarterback take charge and have command. And Trubisky didn't really have the respect of his team. We saw everyone celebrating on Twitter when Cam Newton was available. Like all the receivers were like, sign Cam and all this stuff, right?
Crazy.
So, his own team didn't like him and they really needed, they brought in Foles just to kind of teach him like how to get respect from his teammates and how to take command and those types of things. And I think that, from what they said and reading between the lines, they're like, oh, well, we brought in Nick and, we brought in they talk about the quarterback room as a whole. And they're like, we're getting what we want out of it. Right. So apparently Trubisky's showing those leadership qualities this year in camp, but that all changes on Sunday. Like you got to go out and make plays or they're going to turn right on them again. And that's kind of like, I think that they're giving it one last shot so Pace can maybe save his job. Pace probably said like, hey, Foles doesn't look great in practice, right? Like, is there, can we give Mitch another chance? And Nagy said, sure, so we'll see.
Yeah,
I don't think I'm not as bullish on the Bears as I was, but I think that defense is still really good. And I think it's a wide open division. So I think you see the Packers regress. I think the Vikings will regress. I think Detroit will be better. I think the Bears will be better. But and that's what you kind of look at. You don't. No one's going to sneak up on anyone in the NFC West. You know what I mean? We know who runs that. But
it's 2020. So I'll tell you what.
Yeah, who knows, right?
Screwed up thing this year. I wouldn't be shocked to see the Detroit Lions win a division. I mean, I can't remember the last time they won a division. I mean,
Wayne Font and the big cigars, right?
Yeah, I think it's Wayne Fontenot time, way back when, man.
Like 86 or something.
It could have been like Scott Mitchell as their quarterback for all we know. Who knows? But
Herman Moore, right?
Yeah, Herman Moore. Oh man, think about that. Roddy Pete when he was. Oh man, I'll tell you, the teams in Detroit. Some teams are just never good. Think about that. Like Detroit, Cleveland, no matter what, it's like they can never make the right move. It's crazy. It is. But I want to get your opinion on something before we go. So one of my picks, and it's not very popular because we are a Philadelphia sports town. Was Dak Prescott is my dark horse to win the MVP this year. Yeah, and I really think, looking at, and obviously I look at everything from a fantasy perspective and try to relate. And I know you look at everything from a sports betting perspective. So seeing him in a plus 300 in the last 3 years when we talk about passing yards, to see him with a new coach and Mike McCarthy, who we know how he likes to pass the ball. The highest he's ever finished in rushing was 28th. I mean, you just already know they're not going to run the ball like we think they are. Sure, Zeke will get his, but Dak Prescott is going to hit the 5,000 mark plateau easily to me. 49.02 last year, and 98 more yards. He hits that plateau. He's got a lot of weaponry on that team. I really think that this could be the year where he is not only the number one fantasy quarterback, but I think he could be the NFL MVP. Can you imagine what kind of market that'll be for Dak if he does that?
Yeah, well, I think, a lot of people are big on the Cowboys this year. A lot of people because of, the advanced metrics show. I talked about yards per play earlier. They were tied with San Francisco in, number one in the NFL in that area. And I think that the question with Prescott for me is just, can he do it? Can he take that next step and be an elite guy, or is he going to be like a Kirk Cousins his whole life, right? And that's where I'm stuck with him, and I'm not sure. And this year we're going to find out because they have all the weapons in the world. You're right, but they're a team. He's like Jekyll and Hyde. So it's like they accumulated tremendous stats last year, but if you look at those games, they did it all against Detroit, Washington, the Giants. All his big games were against these bottom feeder teams. They were 0-5 on the road against teams that won more than 5 games, right? So they're the only teams they beat: Giants, Washington, Detroit, Miami, all those teams. He was a vastly different quarterback. They were 2-8 against teams that were in the top half of the league in defensive DVOA. They were like 1-5 against teams that were in the top 10. So they really didn't play well, and we saw a little bit about that here, right? He comes to Philadelphia, the division, the season's on the line. He can't even get in the end zone against an Eagles defense that, let's be honest, right? If we didn't have Buddy Ryan on the sidelines, we have Reggie White and Seth Joyner out there, right? Like, our defense held up at the end of the year, but, our cornerbacks let up 40 points to Ryan Fitzpatrick. So, there was opportunity there for Prescott. Couldn't do anything. And then the next week they run up 50 points against Washington when the season's over to close the doors. And that's kind of what we saw with Prescott the entire year. So I need to see him do it against good teams in order to buy in. But if he does and he's able to make that step, it's good money. It's great value because they're going to put up a ton of points if they can be consistent and if he can make that jump. And listen, the NFL MVP, what I tell people all the time is, you can look back through history, you don't have a shot unless you're winning like 12 games. Like, they give it to the team that wins a lot of games. Like, when Matt Ryan won it, they won a ton of games. They went to the Super Bowl. When Cam Newton won it, they went to the Super Bowl. That was a year they won a ton of games, 13 games, I think. So and Dallas can be that team if everything clicks and everything goes right. Now, their defense stinks, which is probably plays in the Prescott MVP favor conversation. You know what I mean? Because that's going to help him. They're going to be, they're not going to be able to blow anyone out because defense could be letting up 30 points a game. So I think all that plays. It's just a matter of, like, can he make that jump to be from like a Kirk Cousins to where I see him now to really being an elite quarterback in the NFL. And if he can, then that MVP is going to be pretty good money because I think he's got a good chance of cashing it. Now, I don't know if he's that guy, but if he is that guy, it's going to pay off.
Well, one thing for sure, I mean, his schedule first half of the year is not that bad. I mean, they open up against the Rams on Sunday Night Football, right? But then you have Atlanta, right? You have a tough game against Seattle. Then you get Cleveland, you get the Giants, you get Arizona, you get the Washington football team, and then you're week 8 against the Eagles. So, I mean, the availability for them the option for them to be very productive in the beginning of the year is going to be pretty plentiful. So, I just think that everything is going to click at the right time. Obviously I don't want Dallas to win because I'm a Philly guy. I'm looking at this from,
we prefer 0-16.
Right. Absolutely. 100%. But I'm just looking from a fantasy perspective. Guys are saying, hey, I'm just going to wait on Dak Prescott. I'm like, you know what? You wait, you're getting a tremendous value because, you're right. Tremendous value on Dak Prescott.
Because even if you look at those teams that you named, like even like the Atlanta, okay, now I don't like Atlanta this year, but their biggest weakness is their secondary. So even if you have them as a competitive team, that secondary is not competitive. He should be able to chew them up. Seattle's on the schedule, right? Same thing. Seattle, very good team. I like a lot, right? I like them because of Russell Wilson. I don't like them for, Shaquille Griffin or whoever they have out there playing secondary now. Even Jamal Adams, he's going to be up. He's going to be a box safety there. He's not going to be covering anybody. And if he is, they're going to be in trouble. So, even those teams that you named in the schedule that are tougher teams really aren't that good, from a passing defense perspective. So I think there's a ton of opportunity there for him.
Well, one thing's for sure, man, as we've seen tonight, the NFL's back, Mark.
It is,
NFL's back, and, exactly. I mean, this is what we live for. Sunday is going to be electric. No matter what, is it all day football, 1, 4, 8. You got the doubleheader on Monday night. There's so many things going on. It was nice to see. Number one, I think they did everything the right way. I was pleasantly surprised at how much 16,000 fans made it sound like it was a packed stadium at Arrowhead. I mean, it was a really weird sight. I felt like I was watching a post game for the entire game, right? It's
interesting because it's, it really, when they said that, like, they'd be allowed to have 16,000 in, I'm like, well, that's not going to matter. You're not going to be able to hear them or whatnot. But you could hear them a little bit tonight. I mean, it made a little bit of a difference. So it's going to be an advantage for those teams. They're able to have fans in there. How much of an advantage? I don't know. Road teams did pretty well last year in the NFL with packed stadiums. So I don't think it's going to be too big of an advantage. But in spots, we'll see, it can make a difference.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It really is. I can't wait to see it, and I know we'll be watching. And listen, I know you got a full card. What's coming up? You got anything going up tomorrow? You doing anything this weekend? Well, what do you got going on, man?
Yeah, I'm gonna do a little stream Saturday morning.
Yes,
for college football. So we're gonna wake up and do some betting on Saturday morning. College football is back as well on a limited basis, but it's it's not the full slate that we're used to, but it's good enough. We'll take what we can get. So I'm gonna be up early on Saturday morning, probably around 10:15, digging into those games. And then, we can't wait till Sunday. Sunday's where it all happens. I'll be on Daily Ticket tomorrow, giving my plays for the weekend. We hit the Chiefs tonight. We're going to keep it rolling. We got about 4 other ones that we're going to take advantage of.
Sounds good, man. Sounds good. And again, I'm sure we'll be hooking up again. I'll be doing a lot of fancy stuff here or there. I'm nervous, man. They got me. The station has me in this DFS expert league, bro. Like I have to hit it, Mark. You know what I mean? I got to hit it. I got to represent as much as I can. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. Just glad it's back. So everybody who tuned in, we appreciate it. Follow us at Fox Sports a Gambler. Mark, what's your at X_Drumheller at Tikatilla23? Check the new logo, looking good too. By the way, I love it. The Wizard logo is looking fine, man.
Big season this year. Big season.
Man. Absolutely.
So we came to win.
Yeah, he doesn't just do UFC, man. He does it all. My man was hitting UFC and XFL when everybody else was eating popcorn, so now he's doing everything else. So, you know what I mean? So, thanks for joining us, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll catch you next time.